1 year ago today, the highest court in the most powerful country in the world heard oral arguments in the case Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization that would go on to overturn over 50 years of precedent of women's fundamental right to abortion in this country. On that day, the fascist theocrats who sit on the Supreme Court talked about women's lives with all the piousness and cruelty of the high priests of the medieval Dark Ages. Brett Kavanaugh and Clarence Thomas, for example, openly agonized over how to weigh the value of a full-grown human woman with that of a clump of cells growing inside of her. Shame! Think about the barbarity of that. And think about the thousands of years of patriarchal violence and ownership of women that logic flows out of. I want you to think about the centuries of women in every part of the world, in every culture, who have been treated as the property of men. Think about the women who have been shamed, outcast, and even killed because they weren't able to bear children. I want you to think about the women who were murdered through ritualized violence of all the men and the boys in a town gathering together to throw stones at that woman if she couldn't produce a bloody sheet on the wedding night. And no, I don't want your mind to only go to Afghanistan and Iran. I want you to confront that this was written into the Bible. Deuteronomy. It is mandated in the Christian tradition that is kept alive and echoed in this country with its cult of purity rings for young teenage girls and the white wedding dress that celebrates that same virginal tradition. It is still with us. I want you to think about what it means that people who can even think to formulate such a question have the right to sit in judgment of the lives and the bodies and the futures of half of humanity. What kind of society is this? What kind of world is this? And why should anyone put up with any of this for 1 second longer? That is why 1 year ago, after these arguments, I got together with people coming from very different political perspectives and backgrounds, and we started this movement, Rise Up for Abortion Rights, because we saw what was coming. We saw they were on track to overturn abortion rights, and we saw this is unacceptable and it needed to be fought, because forced motherhood is female enslavement. And we can see as well the craven, unconscionable capitulation of the so-called pro-choice movement, who is slavishly subordinated to the Democratic Party. They didn't even pretend they were going to fight this. Instead, they said it's no big deal if they overturn Roe. We'll spread the abortion pill. We'll help some women travel. And we'll prepare for a long-haul strategy to win this right back through the elections over decades. And today, those very same voices who did nothing to fight this overturning are out there spreading the lie that we should be celebrating some kind of a big abortion win in the midterms. This is bullshit. Bullshit! Bullshit! You can only claim a big win for women's right to abortion if you squint and look at just a few states like here in California that protected the measure. You can only celebrate that as a universal win for women's lives if you are willing to erase and accept the enslavement of more than 22 million women and girls who have lost this right already. You have to ignore the women in Ohio and Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri and South Dakota and Idaho and Arkansas and Kentucky who are routinely sent home from hospitals to bleed out, to risk infection and even death from miscarriages. You have to be willing to accept and ignore the 17-year-old living in her car, the 30-year-old with 4 kids already, and a husband who hits her. to college or pursue her passion for music. All these women and countless others having to foreclose those plans, being driven deeper into poverty, being tied even more desperately to her abuser, being told her hopes, her dreams, her aspiration for her life, and her very life itself does not matter because the state will force her to carry a pregnancy she did not want against her will. This is what is happening right now. This is not a win. This is unacceptable. And it is also delusional to celebrate some kind of big abortion win. Because everybody knows that any statewide protection could be gone in a second by a federal abortion ban or a ruling from the same fascist Supreme Court. And this is exactly what the fascist movement that has clawed its way into controlling the Republican Party and the Supreme Court, and which has a social base of millions of crazed, violence-prone fanatics, is planning to do. And this is only part of the horrors they are pushing. White supremacist, anti-immigrant, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Semitic, climate-destroying, election-denying horrors. It is time for the decent people of this country to wake up. The Democrats are not going to wage the fight that is needed. They refused for 50 years to codify Roe. They spent decades seeking common ground with those who are attacking abortion. They refused to call people into the streets to fight against the overturning of Roe after the Supreme Court made it clear that's what they intended to do. But it is not just that they refuse. They are terrified of you waging this fight. And so are others in the so-called movement, which is why some of them so viciously attacked Rise Up for abortion rights over the summer when we started to lead tens of thousands to get out in the streets and fight this. It is why they attacked me, and it is why they came with special viciousness against the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian. You see, these Democrats, they are part of the rulers of this country. They're part of the system. And they are trying to heal the divides in this country, even if it means working with and capitulating to these fascists. They are determined to rely on and rope decent people into this country to relying on the very structures and norms and electoral processes of this system that the Republican fascists are aggressively ripping up and are refusing to be bound by. But our interests, the interests of women and girls and future generations and everybody who cares about justice and the women of the world, our interests do not lie in maintaining stability at the cost of women's lives in the future. Our interests lie in stopping this onslaught, and that is going to take a fight. It is going to take calling our sisters and our mothers and our daughters and people of all genders who care about justice into the streets to raise bloody hell, to put it on the line, to unite all who can be united from diverse political perspectives and backgrounds, and to unleash the pent-up fury of millions and millions of women and girls and thousands of years of patriarchal degradation and enslavement. This has to be uncorked as it is being done in Iran, and we stand with the women there. We have to bring this into the streets and say that ruling was illegitimate. The Supreme Court is illegitimate. Women need legal abortion on demand and without apology nationwide and around the world now. And winning this is also going to take lifting our heads and daring to ask and debate why this is happening, where it comes from, and what it will take to end it once and for all. And for my part, as Luna said, I come at this fight with the understanding it is going to take an actual revolution. I am a proud follower of the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian. And I want to tell you, sisters and brothers and beautiful people, that there is nowhere more important to go to understand why we're in the situation we are today and what we need to do to win a future worthy of humanity. Why this will take a revolution and why we are living now in a time when this revolution is very possible. than the interview that I recently had the honor of conducting with Bob Avakian together with Andy Z, the host of the Revolution Nothing Less show, where we did the interview. And if you care, and I know you do, take the time to watch it at youtube.com/therevcoms. You will meet a revolutionary leader with heart and soul and principle and scientific rigor, and you will have your sights lifted to a world where never again are women controlled, subjugated, raped, insulted, terrorized, shamed, spit upon, stalked, reduced to breeders, pimped out, beaten down, or treated as less than fully human. Where this is written into the law and it is backed up in the educational system and the culture, and more than that, where the fight against all of this, all forms of oppression based on gender and sexual orientation, is a driving force in the fight to overcome all forms of exploitation and oppression for all people everywhere across this planet. There is urgency in getting into this, just as there is urgency for all of us. Those of us convinced of the need for revolution and those who are not, those who will vote for the Democrats and those who will rail against them, to be out in these streets together, fighting for legal abortion on demand and without apology. It is time not to adjust to greater horror by the day and lower our sights. It's time to lift our sights, to straighten our backs, to engage in vigorous and principled debate about the way forward as we stand shoulder to shoulder in these streets, declaring, and I want you to repeat after me, we won't go back.
We won't go back.
We won't go back.
We won't go back.
Fetuses are not babies.
Fetuses are not babies.
Abortion is not murder.
Abortion is not murder.
Women are not incubators.
Women are not incubators.
Rise up for abortion rights.
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 Thank you very much.
Yeah.